Sometimes the kindest people feel guilty for saying the smallest no. They reply when they are exhausted. They agree when they do not have the energy. They keep showing up even when something inside them is quietly breaking. And the hardest part is not always what other people ask from them. It is the guilt they feel the moment they try to protect themselves. A lot of good people were never taught that boundaries are healthy. They were taught that being good means being available, being easy to reach, being understanding, being patient, being the one who adjusts. So when they finally start setting limits, it does not feel strong at first. It feels selfish. It feels harsh. It feels like they are becoming someone cold, when really they are just becoming honest. This is why boundaries can feel so confusing. On the outside, it may look simple. Just say no. Just speak up. Just be clear. But inside, it can feel like disappointing people, creating tension, or risking connection. For someone who is used to keeping the peace, that can feel deeply uncomfortable, not because they are wrong, but because their nervous system has learned to associate safety with pleasing others. Many people who feel guilty about boundaries are not trying to be weak. They are trying to avoid pain. Maybe they learned early in life that love was easier to keep when they were helpful. Maybe they were praised for being mature, easy, and selfless. Maybe they became the person everyone could rely on. And after a while, that role became their identity. So when they stop overgiving, it does not just feel like changing a habit. It can feel like losing who they are. You can see this in everyday life. Someone says yes to plans they do not want to attend because they are afraid of seeming rude. Someone answers calls late at night because they feel bad ignoring them. Someone keeps listening, helping, fixing, and giving, even when they are mentally exhausted, because they do not want anyone to think they have changed. And little by little, they start abandoning themselves to stay acceptable to others. That is what makes guilt around boundaries so powerful. It does not always say, you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it says, you are letting people down. You are being difficult. You are not as caring as you used to be. And if you have spent years measuring your worth by how much you give, that voice can feel very convincing. But guilt is not always a sign that you are doing something bad. Sometimes guilt shows up because you are doing something new, something your old survival patterns do not know how to trust. Yet, a boundary can feel wrong simply because it interrupts what has always been normal. Especially if normal meant over-explaining, overextending, and putting your own needs last. Healthy boundaries are not punishment. They are not rejection. They are not cruelty. They are a way of saying, I matter too. I cannot keep giving from a place of depletion. I cannot keep being available at the cost of my peace. And for people who are deeply empathetic, that truth can take time to accept, because empathy often makes them see everyone else's needs clearly, while ignoring their own. One reason boundaries feel especially hard for good people is because they genuinely care. They do not want to hurt anyone. They understand people's struggles. They can see the reasons behind other people's behavior. They know when someone is stressed, lonely, overwhelmed, or wounded. But understanding someone does not mean you must absorb the impact of everything they do. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-neglect. This is where many people get stuck. They think if they explain enough, soften enough, or apologize enough, then maybe the boundary will be acceptable. So instead of saying, I cannot make it, they write a long paragraph. Instead of saying, I need space, they try to make it painless for everyone else. Instead of simply being clear, they carry the emotional burden of making sure no one feels disappointed. But boundaries are not meant to erase discomfort. They are meant to create clarity. And yes, sometimes people will not like your boundaries. Not because your boundaries are wrong, but because they benefited from your lack of them. That can be one of the hardest truths to accept. When people are used to unlimited access to your time, energy, and emotional labor, your limits may feel unfamiliar to them. But someone being unhappy with your boundary does not automatically mean you are unkind. A healthy boundary might be not replying right away. It might be saying, "I am not available tonight." It might be not picking up every emotional burden that gets placed in your hands. It might be stepping back from relationships where your kindness is expected but not respected. These choices can feel guilty at first, especially if you are used to being the strong one, the available one, the understanding one. But protecting your energy is not betrayal. Sometimes the guilt comes from an old fear that if you stop giving so much, people will leave, and that fear can run deep. But the relationships that require your constant self-sacrifice to survive are often the very relationships that make boundaries necessary. Real connection does not ask you to disappear inside it. Real love does not demand that you abandon your limits to prove your care. The truth is, boundaries often feel guilty before they feel peaceful. There is usually a transition period, a tender space where you are learning that you can be kind without overgiving, caring without rescuing, loving without losing yourself. That process can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not failure. It is often part of healing. You are not a bad person for needing rest. You are not selfish for wanting space. You are not cruel for saying no to what drains you. And you are not responsible for managing everyone's reaction to your honesty. Being good does not mean being endlessly available. It means being truthful, respectful, and human. That includes being honest about your limits too. The people who truly care about you may need time to adjust, but they will not need you to betray yourself to keep the connection. And the more you practice healthy boundaries, the more you begin to notice something important. The guilt gets quieter, the clarity gets stronger, and the version of you that once felt selfish starts to feel safe. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop saying yes when your whole body is asking for no. Not because you care less, but because you are finally learning that your well-being matters too. If this spoke to something you have been feeling, subscribe to Everyday Psychology for more gentle insights on emotions, healing, boundaries, and the inner patterns that shape our lives.